Hi everybody. Since everybody is constantly asking me to record some video tutorial about the architecture workbench of FreeCAD and how to do BIM modeling in FreeCAD, I'm gonna do a quick overview today of FreeCAD and the whole BIM modeling process. And this will be also a test. If you guys liked this video, I propose to produce more afterwards about specific subjects of BIM modeling, how to make walls, how to make windows, etc. But what I'm going to do today is a general overview of FreeCAD, basically. So, for who doesn't know FreeCAD yet, FreeCAD is a 3D modeler. It's a generic 3D modeler. It's not made specifically for BIM. It's made for anything. We used to say it's made to model things that are going to be built in the real world. That can be from small electronic components to buildings or cities. So if you don't know it, if you don't have it yet, it's easy to find. Just Google for FreeCAD. And the first entry will be the FreeCAD website. So you just go into the download section. And you will get here a version, the stable version for all operating systems. The version I'm using here and what I am recommending you to use is not the stable version, but a development version. In a couple of weeks we will release the new version 17 of FreeCAD, and you can already grab it if you go in that link. And I highly recommend you to use this one because it's already totally stable, and or you can wait a couple of weeks and get the official version when it's released. So after you download FreeCAD and install it and open it, this is what you will get. This start center page is something we'll probably remove in next versions, or change it or make it something a bit more useful. And then you have here the most important component of FreeCAD, which is the workbench selector. Workbenches are basically collections of tools that are grouped together by specialty. Think a bit of a big workshop where each different worker would have a different workbench. The guy who works with wood would have his own table with his own tools. The guy who works with metal has another table with different tools, but they all can work on the same object. They just pass it from one to the other. The same concept applies in FreeCAD. You have all of these are the built-in workbench that come together with standard FreeCAD installation. But if you go, you need version 17 development version to do that. If you use this add-on manager, you have a lot more workbenches that are programmed by other developers for outside of the FreeCAD core. Several of those are pretty interesting to install for BIM. I will develop that in a further video, but basically the DXF library is interesting to export and import DXF format. Flamingo is interesting, is a collection of tools to work with metallic structures. The parts library is interesting, is a collection of pre-made objects. It's the object library of FreeCAD, but just take a little time to explore all of them. There are really interesting things. So the main workbench that we're gonna use for BIM is the Arch workbench. It has a lot of tools. All these toolbars can be moved. I'm here with a smaller screen, so it gives a better video, but of course if you have a large screen this becomes interesting. All of these workbenches have their own tools, and you can also bring tools from one workbench to another. If you go to customize here, you have really deep customization options for your workbench, and you can really make your workbench look the way you want and bring in it tools from the other workbenches. So this is what happens when you open a new file. Let's, for example, switch to the draft workbench, and you have the draft workbench has classical 2D drawing tools like line. You draw lines like this, or you can do it fully from the keyboard just by entering 0, 0, 0, 2, 10, 0, 0, and you have your line. You can do it fully from the keyboard as well. So each of these workbench has several different tools. The part workbench has basic primitive shapes and so on. So the main workbench to be used for BIM modeling is the arch workbench. It features several typical tools that you would find in other BIM applications, such as wall, structure, reinforcement bars, floor that's used to make levels, building that's used to make building, site, window that's used to make windows and doors. In FreeCAD, a door is a special case of a window. Roofs, access systems, section planes, spaces, stairs, panels, and equipment, which is all those pre-made piece of things like furniture or hydraulic equipment that you would find in a building. A frame that's used to make all kinds of frame objects like railings, etc. Material tools, schedule that can gather data from the model, for example counting all the windows or things like that, and tubes, tools that are used to make piping. So the two main things about FreeCAD that are important to know and to understand are that it's generic and it's parametric. Basically, I've opened here a couple of files I'm currently working on. The interesting thing about being generic is that you can really work the way you want, and you're not forced to follow a kind of BIM way of doing, like most BIM application would force you, for example, to place all your objects inside story object. In FreeCAD, you don't really need to do that. If you look at the content of these files, each time you open a file, it would appear here, and all the content of the files, all the objects that that file contains are here in this window. In the case of this file, for example, you can see how I choose to organize it, basically by creating groups, and inside those groups placing all my objects. And you see that every little thing, every base object that was used to construct another one is there. So you really can organize this, and you can organize your model exactly the way you want. If you're not interested in working by level, you just make your other way of working. You just group your things the way you want. Another interesting thing is that you're not forced to use those BIM tools. I will explain that in a further video. But basically, you can use all the tools from the other workbench to model, and then convert these objects to BIM objects simply by taking like one block and saying this is a wall, saying one roof and saying this is a roof. But you could model them with other tools or even with other software and import them in FreeCAD and convert them to BIM objects. They are all made to be that flexible that they don't expect any kind of shape. You could take the monkey head mesh from Blender and import it and say this is a wall, and it will behave just like any other wall. You can cut it, you can join it with other walls, and it would just work. So that's the interesting part of being generic. It's not a BIM application. This is actually an advantage and not a problem. It just opens your possibilities. And the other interesting factor is that it's parametric. That means that any of those objects that you would click here, this one, this window has here parameters, and it is driven by parameters. For example, if you take this one and you, for example, take this wall and modify its height, so all these objects are driven by the parameters. You can work with these parameters in any unit you want. You can say this is 500 centimeters, and or you can even work in inch inside a model that is in centimeters, or you could say this is 20 feet. So FreeCAD always works in real world units, and you just need to specify the right units, but it would mix any units together. So basically, what can you do already with FreeCAD? Basically, this kind of smaller models works pretty well already. They are quite easy to model now directly with these BIM tools. You could also import some parts from other software such as Blender. Once you created your model, you can easily create some views of it by placing these section planes inside your model. And then once these section planes are created, you can use them to export 2D views of the model. This can be easily then exported to DXF, and this is how it goes inside a DWG application, for example, like DraftSite. In this case, I just added hatching and dimensioning. I could have done it directly in FreeCAD. The hatching, not quite, but the dimensioning works already. But in this case, I found it easier to do it directly in DraftSite, because it would be the same work of doing it in FreeCAD or in DraftSite. This is still, let's say, the old way of doing it, which is to export the 2D views inside the 3D model. But there is the next thing is already coming, which is in this case which is the TechDraw module, which allows you to do all that directly in FreeCAD. And the big advantage is that these 3D views are parametric. They stay constantly updated when you change something in the model. All these dimensions would update automatically as well. You can put hatching inside your view, you can put dimensioning, you can put text, you can already do quite a lot of things in TechDraw. These can be exported to SVG, to DXF, and to PDF directly. So another thing you can do as well, which is very important in the BIM world, is to export this model to other BIM applications. For this, you can export any model to the IFC format, which is the de facto standard for BIM models. This model basically, you don't need to do anything. You can just take any FreeCAD model, export, press the export button. You can organize your model a little bit better. You can make sure that it's inside a house object, and you can organize your model better. You can make sure you use the correct object type depending on what you want, that a wall is a wall, a column is a column, etc. Because that's the way it will be exported to IFC. If you don't do anything, everything will be exported as generic object, which is not what you want, because the big advantage of IFC is to export meaningful objects, and this is the kind of result that you get when you export the model I was showing now to IFC. Basically, this application here is IFC++. It's a free open source application as well. It works on all the platforms, and it's my favorite test bed to make sure that the IFC files I export from FreeCAD are okay. If there are any problems, it would print here any error it would find in the files. And recently it becomes easier and easier to produce like 100% clean files from FreeCAD. These files would usually open correctly in all other BIM applications like Revit or ArchiCAD. Not always, you always have problems, but again, you have the same problems when you export from ArchiCAD to Revit or the contrary, so it's not specific to FreeCAD. Another cool thing that you can do is produce spreadsheets. You have here a spreadsheet module that can produce spreadsheets, and in the Arch module you have this schedule tool that would fill spreadsheets with data that you can gather from your model. For example, all the lengths of all the walls, all the areas of all the windows, all of a certain type of windows, and that kind of stuff. The idea is to produce a spreadsheet which has all the quantities and that you can use inside the spreadsheet application to put a price on it, for example. Another interesting thing you can do from these models is to export them for rendering. One of the add-ons that you can get here is the render workbench, and this allows you to use external renderers inside FreeCAD and produce nice looking images directly from your model inside FreeCAD. If you look at all the file formats that FreeCAD supports, there are really a lot of stuff, and many of those formats are supported by other applications, and each workbench and plugin that you add as an add-on can bring more file formats. So there is really a big quantity of exchange formats possible with other applications. So that's basically it. In the description below this video I will place a couple of links to the FreeCAD website and directly to the models that I showed in this video, so you can download them, open them in FreeCAD and explore them here and see how they are built. Basically, one of the big things also is that all of this is pretty easy to explore. With the space key you just turn one group on and off, or a particular object. You just turn everything on, off, and everything on again, just to go back to the original situation. And I guess that's it for this video, to not make it too long. I hope you liked it. I hope you find this useful. If you liked it and if you would like me to produce more of those, let me know in the comments below this video. So next one, to begin to start to explore each of these tools and more in detail. How do you make walls, how to make columns, how you put all your model together, etc. That's it then. See you in the next video. Bye.